Hello and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. I am Daryl Grove and I'm joined by a man who is doing his best to stay optimistic for the USA's games 2 and 3 of Copa America Centenario Group A. It's Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello. I'm doing my best. Doing my best. Yeah. We'll have more reasons to be optimistic later on in the show.
Yeah.
But right now I think we both are still reeling a little bit from the USA's 2-0 loss to Colombia in the opening game of Copa America Centenario.
We certainly are. We did an immediate take on this game. It's like 12 minutes long.
Yep.
Initial thoughts. That's the previous show in your episode list. We've since watched the game a second time, and I think most of what we said is still holds, except we feel like maybe the US system, this 4-3-3 with Dempsey high and Woodensiders out wide and the three-man midfield, didn't work as well as we thought it did. Like on a closer inspection, you can see all the little problems.
Yeah.
It's like a YouTube video that's in 480p. Like it looks good from a distance, but the closer you get, the pixelier it gets.
I like that one. I also like the idea of like when you're frantically trying to like completely deep clean your house or apartment before like your mom comes, and you just start seeing like there's a thing there, there's a thing there, and
you never noticed it before.
Yeah, and all of a sudden it's like nothing's ever going to be clean again.
Absolutely.
And so I think our initial hot take was that basically it was a good first half from the U.S. with two bad moments that led to 2 goals, and then it was kind of a failure to adapt in the second half.
Turns out the bad moments are more connected than we thought to the system and the performance.
Exactly. And I think what it ended up being is like, so we saw the U.S., for example, having a lot of possession in that first half and kind of some good possession, some good passing, some decent opportunities. And we thought, like, that's great. That's really wonderful. And you go back and look at it, and it's sort of like Colombia saying, yeah, you guys can have the ball, and we'll just take it when we're ready. There's a few moments like that. But maybe we should. So for example, with that quick take one, we said that it's like 8th minute goal, and that kind of breaks your whole spirit. It kind of throws off your game plan. And then we go back and look at it from the start of the game, and maybe the seeds were there a little bit before the 8th minute.
Yeah, there's definitely a thing of the Colombian system was working, and I would say the US system wasn't working. And the biggest indicator of the US system not working was Jeff Cameron.
Yep.
And we're not talking about what happened on the corner kick, although we will break that down in excruciating detail in a few minutes. I'm talking about the thing, even before the first goal, we noticed twice Jeff Cameron gesturing to his teammates like forward motions with his hands, which I think it didn't mean push higher, because he was usually the deepest man, right? So he's not telling it. He was saying, I'm almost certain he was saying pressure on the ball. Because there were 2 or 3 moments, even in the first 5 minutes, where Juan Cuadrado got the ball out wide and was in all kinds of space and could play balls down the line for Bacca, like down the line and in behind for Bacca to run onto. And that's actually how we ended up conceding the infamous fatal corner kick, which leads to the goal.
Right, but I think the more alarming thing for me was that was the second time we'd seen Jeff Cameron be kind of frustrated with people not stepping to their man quickly. And when we went back and watched, it wasn't really that apparent who was actually at fault. It wasn't just like, oh, this guy's not stepping, or this guy's not stepping. It was sort of like, well, it seems like everyone's kind of out of position, and no one quite knows what to do, at least in this specific situation.
So yeah, I think it's sort of a system failure. Like not like the entire system is broken, but more like there's a glitch in the matrix, right? Because for the one that eventually results in the corner kick is the one I have in my head. It's Bobby Wood has made that like forward run, and he almost gets on the end of a through ball, and I think Zapata steps across him.
Right.
But Bobby Wood then is in that forward position, right, which is what he's meant to do. He's meant to go and attack, but he's left his left midfield, left wing spot. So when the ball is circulated back around, no one has replaced him. Like if anything, I think Clint Dempsey, because Bobby Wood is in the centre forward position, if we're going to be in a solid keep that shape to prevent Colombia building, Clint Dempsey should fill in on the left wing. And certainly Jermaine Jones shouldn't follow Clint Dempsey forward and leave an extra hole in the middle.
And then drift further inside.
Yeah.
And I think if you look at a team that does kind of know, like look at Atletico Madrid, for example, like a team that knows exactly what their roles are, that you would see that like, oh, he's gone to the right, then I'm going to the left, and I'm covering my spot, and I know that I need to fill in for him. And it seems like everybody in those teams, those types of teams, knows their role, and this guy's role, and that guy's role, and that guy's role. And with the U.S., it seemed like everybody was sort of focused on the one thing they were supposed to do, and not really paying attention to everything else that was happening around them, and Colombia clearly were paying attention to all of the different opportunities available.
And you know what? When we watched Colombia versus Ecuador, the game that we based our preview on, I think most of the things we spotted in that sort of sadly came to pass in this game. It's the exact same lineup. It's the exact same system, right? So I believe it's a Colombian system that has been worked on and worked on and worked on. Everybody is on the same page. And you saw Torres and Perez, the two defensive midfielders, working together. They knew when to step together. They were like triggers, and it's all
when to load the trap.
Yeah. I mean, we'll talk about the trap for the second goal, but we talked about the nerf trap where they come back. Then when they're all compact and ready, then they launch at you. You can only do that if you're all on the same page and you've been kind of drilled in it. So I think what I'm getting at is this system, it's the team we called for, right? It's the team we wanted to see. But it's only a lineup and system that we've played for 3 or 4 games. Right? If maybe we'd had this system for a year or 2 years and we'd fine-tuned it and all the players had come into camp and worked on it every time, then maybe you wouldn't get people leaving gaps where someone like Juan Cuadrado can have the ball and play it down the line for Baca and win a corner kick. Right?
Yeah, and so, again, that's the difference between the earlier show and this show, is that I think at first we thought it was kind of an okay game plan and a few players kind of failed to show up and execute. But I do think that is definitely true, that some players were maybe a little bit off their game.
Jermaine Jones was off his game.
I was about to say Jermaine Jones looking in your direction, but you're there for me. But I do think it's also, it's that combined with maybe a lack of familiarity of the overall positioning and the overall responsibility of each individual role leads to a disconnect that leads to goals.
And so we'll talk about the specifics of the Zapata goal on the corner kick in a second, but I just want to underline, if you heard our preview, we talked about the supreme intelligence of James Rodriguez's movement and how hard that is to track. Like, this US team needs to be 100% to keep track of him and stop him getting away. Same with someone like Cuadrado, same with Torres and Perez. And you could see any time we weren't at 100%, they would exploit it with movement. And so it's almost like this was the toughest ask of this system.
Yeah, and it should have been the toughest ask because he's the toughest player to defend against. And
it's like trying to run like a SimCity or Civilization on a really old computer. You know what I mean? It's a really big ask.
Okay, I see what you mean there. But I would take it even away from that because at least then you have software and it's a computer and you can eventually figure it out. What I kept seeing, though, was like, say Jermaine Jones is tracking James Rodriguez and they get into a certain point of the field, you'd kind of see him like point and then move off to a different position, assuming that somebody else was covering.
And that would be good for a normal person.
Except for James Rodriguez, who's like, he's passed me off. Well, then I'm going to check back and get away from that other defender who's not going to follow me, and now I'm wide open in space.
Right.
And so it seemed almost like the briefing was, make sure that if you're going to leave James Rodriguez, someone else has picked him up. And the way that was interpreted was like, like, I'll let Mikey, you get him. And then you pass him off to somebody else.
But James knows where the pickup moment is, so then he knows when to change his run as he's about to be picked up. He would be a terrible Uber passenger.
Yeah.
He would get 1 star. He would never get in the car.
He'd just always stay right behind the car.
And then he'd cancel the trip and request another one.
But I saw that from so many different Colombian players in this game, that they knew exactly where they need to position themselves so that if there was a fast break, they're suddenly goal side and a yard ahead, but they're still in good defensive position if there isn't a fast break. If you're James Rodriguez, it's you check here, but then you stay between the lines, but then you stay just this side of the player so that you can make this run. Like, it was just such intelligence from so many of the Colombian players, and I think you could see that disparity between the Colombian team with that kind of quick movement, quick passing that we talked about in the preview, and the U.S. team, I think, kind of struggling to adapt to the pace of that passing.
All right, we've put it off long enough. We've got to talk about the corner kick.
Let's do.
So it's a great tackle from Jeff Cameron, first of all. He tackles back and gets across after that Cuadrado ball down the line, puts it out of danger temporarily. The corner kick comes in. In my preview, I said they're not really a threat in the air. They're not a threat on set pieces.
Yeah, we heard about this on Twitter.
Yeah, we did. And I still stand by that, because what they do instead is more intelligence and movement and exploitation of space than it is being 6'4" and winning a ball in the air.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
This is their centre-back making a run worthy of a centre-forward.
Yeah, or worthy of a design play. Which is what happened.
Master set-piece theatre is what this is.
So Zapata basically goes to the back post. He's being marked by Jeff Cameron.
Yep. Jeff
Cameron takes a weird defensive approach. Darryl, I'm curious, have you ever done that as a defender?
So what he does is Jeff Cameron has Zapata behind him.
Right.
And I think that has an arm back. So I think the arm is there so that he can feel if Zapata moves. Right. And I think, so I've never done this, and I've never done it because I'm not brave enough to do it. I think because I'd be too scared that I would lose the guy. I think
correctly so in this situation.
I think he's doing it so that he definitely has I don't know what the word is. I was going to say first position, but that's a ballet thing, right? Like, so that he does it, so I think, so he has the jump on him.
Yeah.
Because he can see the ball then. He's looking across at where the ball's coming in, and he knows where Zapata is. So he can get there first.
Theoretically,
if the ball comes across,
sure.
Theoretically, right. But he wasn't ready for what was coming.
Right. Well, he wasn't ready for what was coming.
Because Colombia set up an obstacle course for Jeff Cameron.
You see, that's what he said. He said, like, there was tons of guys in the middle, and it was difficult to get through. It was 2 guys, and it was right in front of him. So it was basically Michael Bradley and Daniel Torres were kind of face-to-face, and then Zapata goes around one side of them, and then this is where I think things go wrong very quickly, because first of all, Jeff Cameron is standing flat-footed when Zapata starts this run. And if you don't know, essentially, if you're not up on your toes the way you're supposed to be in soccer, part of the reason why is because that makes you more ready, but it also is because when you're up on your toes, your natural inclination is to move forward, to fall forward, and so your first step is going to be forward.
Yeah.
If you're flat-footed, almost always you're going to take a step back to give yourself momentum to move forward.
Right.
That's exactly what happens here. Jeff Cameron takes that step back, and in so doing, gives Zapata 1 or 2 steps to get away from him.
Yeah.
And then he takes a not great angle to get back on track.
I think he thinks about following him around the back, and then he realizes that Bradley and Torres are in his way, so then he goes around the front. Like, it's not like a huge diversion, but the thing of being on his heels and having to take that step back, plus the slight detour that he takes. Again, if it was an Uber ride, you'd be looking at it thinking, I took the long way around to that.
Are you getting paid by Uber for this show?
There's an ad read for Uber coming up later. But the one on his heels and the one running in and then around, that combines to about a step. And when you measure how close Jeff Cameron is to blocking Zapata's volley when he meets the ball, he's about a step away.
Yeah.
So that's all the space he's lost was in those 2 things. It's been on his heels and going the wrong direction to begin with.
But then if you watch it in super slow motion, when he does catch up to Zapata, it's almost like this weird, like Jeff Cameron's been chasing Zapata and he's chased him to the airport, and Jeff Cameron's arrived at the airport like, haha, I got you. Oh, you took off. And like that's basically what happens. Like you can see him be like, okay, I'm around him, I'm back goal side, and I'm going to the ball's here. And then it's in the net. And so, again, I think he then, in trying to track Zapata, takes his eye off the ball, and that's when he's then moving towards Zapata and not trying to defend the cross. He's defending the player.
Yeah.
And then you're never going to win that challenge.
It's a shame because the thing he's originally trying to do, which is make sure he can see the ball and feel his man, he ends up with sort of neither. He's having to look in 2 directions at once.
Yeah. And it's a shame because I think otherwise we're both pretty pleased overall with the play of Jeff Cameron and John Brooks.
Absolutely.
Brooksy, if you will.
Brooksy.
I kind of enjoyed hearing Jeff Cameron call him Brooksy in the post-match interview. It's like, they're buddies.
Well, I'll say that actually. I was pleased with their defensive play. A lot of really good steps from Brooks and from Cameron. But I felt like when we did our preview, we talked about the US needs to rely on Brooks and Cameron to be distributors, play the ball out of the back. We saw it at the start. Cameron did that roulette and then played the ball down the line to Zardes. It was a really encouraging moment. But after that, I saw a lot of Cameron and Brooks looking comfortable on the ball but being unable to find a pass.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It would end up going... They'd almost... I remember seeing both of them do circles with the ball at some point and still not be able to find a pass. And I don't think it's their fault. I think, again, it's Colombia's defensive scheme.
It's setting the trap. Yeah. It's basically dropping people back.
So, we talked about this again. They come back to be compact. They get behind the ball, and then they launch people forward. But the brilliant part of this is, even just the first part of the trap, when you've got everybody back and compact, means all the passing lanes are blocked.
Yeah.
Right?
And so to your initial point that, like, it's not necessarily their fault, multiple times when we went back and rewatched, we would pause and say, like, okay, what's on right now? Pause.
Yeah.
And, like, nope, he's marked. That guy's going to be offside. He's got nothing.
There was one time when Christian Pulisic was the outlet. He was making... We didn't get a lot of the ball, right, when he came on for the last 30 minutes. We didn't really see him except for maybe one moment when he got down the wing. But he was often the guy who was coming and showing, and I think it was the only pass that was on. He was the only one smart enough to find a channel.
Okay, I haven't said this to you yet, and I do not mean to really be fully on board the Christian Pulisic hype train, but at this point, I really do think that he is the highest IQ of anyone on the U.S. national team. In terms of soccer.
IQ.
Soccer IQ. I can't say how they solve complex word problems or anything like that. But
that's essentially what this is.
But just, to your point that he was the only one who kind of found that space and made that 15-yard sprint to get into space and then expected the ball to his feet, and it didn't come, and you could see him get frustrated. I said on the quick
Cameron
show...
went over the top in the end, right, and he went through to the keeper.
Yeah, and then a separate time, there was another one where Pulisic was well out wide and kind of made an angled run inside and had... a good 10 yards on his man, but Cameron went near instead.
Oh, no, actually, that's the one I'm thinking of, yeah.
Yeah, the other one then, it's basically, I think Cameron just cuts it back and tries to force it in and nothing happens. But I think just his movement is so intelligent and he keeps trying to make the smart runs, does Pulisic.
Yeah.
I just think it's not quite coming off for him, and I think it's because in this game, other people were maybe at that point not confident in the options because everything had been closed off so successfully by Colombia.
Speaking of success by Colombia, they go 2-0 up.
They sure do.
in about, the 40th minute or so. Again, we talked about this once before on the instant take. That is a handball by DeAndre Yedlin. Yeah. Right, confirmed. There's no argument about it. He really complained to the referee, and a lot of players look really mad, and I don't understand it. His arm is like blocking the path of the ball. It's not like a legal place to have your hand. That's a handball. He turns his back, which is bad defensive shape, and we noticed he did it earlier in the game. There's a lot to be kind of mad at DeAndre Yedlin for. Yeah. It's the second time he turned his back on a ball to block it.
Right, and both times it was because he was caught in a position where he wasn't supposed to be.
Yeah.
The first time that he gets hit in the back, he tries to step, then he realizes he shouldn't have stepped, so he drops back. Then he kind of steps again, and then he realizes, like, oh no, my man is behind me. And when he's scrambling to get back goal side, that's when a Colombian player shoots and it hits his back.
Yeah.
But again, he's turned his back to the shooter because he's trying to get in good position. That's what happens with the penalty as well.
Yeah, I think it's any time he's kind of panicking. And I get it. When you defend, you do end up panicking in certain situations. Like panicking sounds like you're freaking out. It's more like you have to make a decision quickly, like you don't have time to think about it. You end up doing just whatever you can kind of desperately, and often that is turning your back on the ball. You know what mine used to be? I played for a team, it was called the backwards tackle. That's what they called it, because they didn't like it.
Yeah.
It was like if someone was beating me like around the back, instead of turning and chasing them, I would try, because I've got kind of long legs, I would try and reach out my back leg and tackle.
Ooh.
And they yelled at me constantly for it and called it the Darryl backwards tackle.
Oh no.
Because
it got Darryl branded. It wasn't just the backwards tackle.
Well, because you've totally sold yourself at that point, right? My legs are spread. It's like I'm doing a stretch. And,
yeah.
You know what I mean? So, yeah. But that's what I'm saying. Like that became like a habit that I had to be cured of. And this is a Yedlin thing that he needs to be cured of. You do not turn your back on the ball, and you especially don't do it with your arms waving around.
You certainly don't. And then
like a T-Rex.
I think you also certainly don't protest as much as he did. And it makes me wonder, I think I'm going to give his teammates the benefit of the doubt, and I would put it this way. You, Daryl Grove, are a trustworthy person. We play together soccer. Wow. We play soccer together all the time. If you got a handball called on you and you angrily, aggressively protested, me as your teammate, I would be like, Daryl doesn't do that unless this is a bad call.
Right.
This is a bad call. It must be a bad call. And Yedlin was so incensed that I think his teammates all were sort of like, well, it must have been a bad call.
Hit him in the chest, maybe.
And then I think they haven't seen the footage yet. And I do think afterwards they're going to be like, maybe it was the right call. Maybe it was the right call. But there's also some interesting points leading into that. So it's not just the handball. It's kind of the sequence that leads DeAndre Yedlin to having to jump in and try to make a play.
It's the trap. It's the classic Colombian trap. I know you can't say we warned you about it because it's just a thing that they do so well that it's almost impossible to prepare for, right? They come backwards, they get compact, and then they get ready, and they launch themselves at you. And the man that got launched at today was Michael Bradley.
Yes. Yeah, so I think it's kind
Perez,
of,
right? Perez, number 13 with the long hair.
It's basically a sequence of 50-50 balls that finally gets played into Michael Bradley. But it's still a little bit of a tough ball to settle, and he takes an okay first touch, but it sends him the wrong way. It sends him back towards his goal. And then he's immediately under pressure from Perez, and I think he feels that pressure, and in trying to adjust his body to block off Perez, he takes a second touch, and it's a very heavy touch. And that's what then he's dispossessed, and Baca intercepts, and Baca goes off to goal, and I think gets fouled, but first plays the ball, and then we have the penalty.
Isn't it Cuadrado plays like a beautiful crossfield pass? No, it's Perez again in the end.
Yeah.
Perez nails it like low and on the floor and left and splits, and that's how they managed to have... I've forgotten it. Oh, it's Diaz.
Yep.
Diaz was the fullback we were hoping would make a terrible mistake, and he was kind of untrustworthy. Turns out it was Diaz exploiting DeAndre Yedlin's back-turning defensive skills in the end.
Yeah, so I will say... a doff of the cap to you, Mr. Grove, for getting a few different things right in the prediction and the preview for this game. But another one that I think that we got right in terms of it working, we kind of got half right because playing physical worked. It was just, I think, the wrong team that utilized it. Because it seemed like in this game, the U.S. maybe tried to do that a little bit, but more often it was Colombia with the kind of, for lack of a better term, like the chippy fouls, like kind of hacking down Dempsey, bringing down people wherever it was necessary. And it was a smart decision because you would have Dempsey turning and going at goal and you bring him down, or Jermaine Jones turning at going at goal and you bring him down. And it seemed like Colombia...
Dempsey got mad in the end, right? He lost it with the referee. In the end, I think it was like one foul too many.
Yeah.
He wasn't the Batman.
He was not.
We talked about like the Dark Knight. He could be the guy that takes it. Like he's the hero Gotham needs because he can handle it.
Yeah.
And in the end, he kind of lost it because the Commissioner Gordon gave him no protection.
I mean, you said this is the angriest I've seen Clint Dempsey in a very long time.
Because normally he's got like that dead-eyed kind of cold, like I'm going to get you look.
Yeah.
Instead, it was like I can't believe you, I'm not getting anything. Look.
And then I think maybe the best example of this is there's a great tackle by John Brooks on Juan Cuadrado. He does the slide tackle through Cuadrado's legs, doesn't make any contact with Cuadrado and puts the ball away. Then there's contact. Cuadrado goes down. And maybe it looks like when he's rolling over, Juan touches his being John Brooks' back with a cleat. Yeah. We're not sure, but John Brooks stands up and immediately stands over him in a very aggressive, intimidating way, which is fine, I guess, except that the referee hadn't called a foul. But he then called a foul because John Brooks is...
Because you can't intimidate people while they're lying on the ground?
You absolutely cannot. And so it's a great defensive play that could have well launched a counterattack, but because John Brooks then responded to maybe a little bit of like gamesmanship from Juan Cuadrado, it becomes a free kick to Colombia in a dangerous position. And so it just seemed like Colombia had that mental edge.
We'd praised John Brooks for being the guy that never gives up on the play in the in the game against Bolivia, right? He chased down what everyone thought was a dead play in the corner.
Yeah. So it was just little moments like that, and you started to see it creep in by the end of the game that there was misplaced passes, and then you'd sort of see guys gesturing at each other, and it just seemed like people got frustrated. And I think it's because, if it were me, I think they believed in the game plan. It seemed like they had a set game plan that they were trying to execute, and it just didn't come off, and that can be very, very frustrating. But I still take solace in the fact that they had a game plan, that we did see bits and pieces of it work, and then I do think it's something that if you fine-tune, it can continue to progress successfully.
Yeah, so this is my maybe biggest complaint about this game before we get to the optimistic stuff, is that this could have worked if we'd been practicing this endlessly and absolutely got it right. Because I think of like the thing that we saw where Wood is high on one side and Zada's a little deeper on the right, and we try and force them that way. That seemed to work at times, but then it broke down and they did get down the right. And when they did that gap is there.
Yeah.
Like if we'd figured that out maybe 6 months ago, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
then
absolutely.
Jermaine Jones would know, okay, when Bobby Wood is high and the ball does get switched over to this side, I need to shuttle left and close down that space.
Yeah.
Right? And then Cuadrado doesn't have all that space. This is the... I'm giving examples because I want to make clear what I mean by fine-tuning. Right?
Yeah.
Like if X, then Y.
Yeah.
And I need to run.
And I can even think of one for you, Mr. Grove. I think it was the Ecuador game that Graham Zusi was wide. He was playing on, I think it was DeAndre Yedlin's side. I believe it was Graham Zusi. And Zusi tried to play a quick little like 1-2 with Yedlin, and Zusi passed it out of bounds. And then turned, and he and Yedlin both kind of had an exchange of like, hey, you were supposed to run. Well, you weren't supposed to play that ball.
Right.
That exact same sequence happened tonight with DeAndre Yedlin and Alejandro Bedoya playing in that position. And it's the same thing where it's like if you work on that, if you drill on that, he knows to make that run, or Bedoya knows not to play that ball because he knows he's not going to make that run.
Yeah.
But because there's still that lack of familiarity, the same mistakes happen.
It's about establishing tiny partnerships all over the field as well, right?
Yeah.
There needs to be like a Yedlin, Bedoya, Zardes partnership down the right, and a Johnson, left back, Jones, Wood, or maybe in the future Pulisic partnership down the left. So then they all can read each other's runs and know sort of telepathically what each other is doing, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like James and Baca and Cuadrado and Cardona seem to know where each seems to know where the other is going, and then the pass can arrive really quickly.
I'd be okay with that. I'd be okay with that setup. Yeah, that'd be fine with me.
So I feel like we're getting into the next games. Up next on Tuesday, I believe, the USA plays Costa Rica. Then on the following Saturday, June 11th, the US plays Paraguay. Right now, time of recording, we are bottom of the group because Costa Rica and Paraguay haven't played, and we have a -2 goal difference. I think we need to start thinking optimistically, right? Because we've made some complaints, but I think they were like reasoned complaints, like things that we observed. I also want to make clear that this was the toughest game, and I want to stay optimistic for the next 2 games because the US can still get out of this group.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So help me out here. Help me be optimistic.
I will. I'm trying to think of like a good metaphor. Like basically, to me, it's like we bought a car and the car performed great when we did the test drive and everything was perfect. Yeah. And now all of a sudden we drove it in like maybe harsher terrain or more difficult conditions. and maybe like a mirror fell off and the radio stopped working, but like the engine's still going.
We tried to climb the Allegheny Mountains. There's a Virginia reference.
At least it was a mountain. That's fine. And so I guess what I'm getting at, though, is that there are parts in there that I think we were both pleased with. For example, the one thing we really didn't want to see is Michael Bradley dropping all the way back in between the center backs to try to pick up the ball and then turn and play. He didn't do that. We kept seeing him stay ahead of those center backs and kind of make that triangle and try to provide an outlet. I feel
like Colombia cut it off, though.
I think they did, but I guess what I'm saying is I'm glad that it wasn't sort of to go different, like the Wayne Rooney thing, where he gets frustrated and so he drops further and further and further back, and then it kind of kills the game plan.
25-24 is your first Manchester United reference for those keeping track.
That was England, sir. No, it's Manchester United. But
was he wearing red or white when you pictured it?
England's red.
Carry on.
England's red. But you know what I mean? Like, so it wasn't that sort of like, well, this isn't working. I'm doing the thing that I usually do. Yeah. It's like Bradley stuck with the game plan. I like that. The other thing that I really enjoyed and have continued to enjoy increasingly is Gyasi Zardes.
Yes.
He had, Twitter, I know. He had some heavy touches. He had some bad first touches. He made a few questionable decisions. He was the only person to evade that...
Torres Perez double.
Yes.
Yeah. It's not a double pivot. It's more like a double crush.
Yeah.
that comes after you.
But he also was the one who, forgive me, I was so excited I punched my mic. He was also the one who was tasked with dropping deep. And I know Brad Friedel said, like, oh, he's dropping too deep. I don't think he was. I think he was doing exactly what was asked of him, which was drop off, don't let them come down form that compact defensive unit with DeAndre Yedlin, and then force them the other way, or force them back into a long ball, whatever. I think he did his job and still managed to get forward and try to create attacking options.
I'm kind of surprised because I complained against Ecuador that he wasn't capable of doing both jobs, and not because it's his fault necessarily, that it's just too much to ask. And I would say he did a better job than Bobby Wood of doing two jobs.
Yeah, and to the point where we knew substitutions were going to happen, and it was definitely one of the first times in my mind that I've been like, no, he can stay on. Definitely. He can stay that full 90 minutes.
We actively wanted him on, and maybe if it was going to be Pulisic coming on, it was going to be Bobby Wood coming off.
Right.
But let me ask you this then. Going into the Costa Rica game, it's obviously a must-win and definitely a must-not-lose game on Tuesday. We'll do a deep preview after we see Costa Rica Paraguay on Saturday and see what everybody's all about this week. Do you go the same 4-3-3 system and assume that it just didn't work against Colombia, and we've maybe learned some lessons, and this is our system, and it's going to work much better against Costa Rica and Paraguay?
I think
is that a reason for optimism?
Well, I don't know if it's a reason for optimism, but I think it's the logical thing to do.
Yeah.
Yes, because there's definitely things that didn't work tonight. So Michael Bradley didn't drop. That's great, but the most misplaced passes I think I've ever seen from him, especially unforced misplaced passes.
I think that's all about Colombia's pressure system. I think that really affected the passing of anyone, I think, but Bradley especially.
Right, but the way you get better at a new thing, when you get hired at a new job, you're going to make mistakes. Yeah. But the important thing is like...
And sorry, to be complaining again, just one more time, if we'd had Bradley at defensive midfield for the last 2 years, maybe he's more comfortable playing balls from that position.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Exactly.
All right, that's the last negative thing I'll say.
But what I don't want to say, I doubt that. But what I don't want to see
not my whole life.
is like, imagine if Bradley gets hired at, like, he's a bartender and the first night he makes a drink wrong.
His career's gone really down.
Well, you know what I mean? Like, he's
this is a metaphor.
Yes. He's hired as a bartender, he makes the wrong drink, and then they're like, well, you know what? You're not a bartender anymore. Go do this now. Yeah. And then, that doesn't work out good. Like, if you're constantly moving, you're never improving. And so I think you've got to let him watch tape, work with him on, okay, if they step here, then you need to have this outlet, or you need to like look for this pass. Bobby Wood, you got to drop here. Like, you evolve the system and you perfect the system, and then it works better in your next game, theoretically. And that's why I say, no, you don't like, there's no overhaul. You keep that car, you climb the Alleghenies, then you make it a stronger engine, and a radio that won't short out, and a mirror that won't fall off.
And you take it somewhere slightly less steep.
Ideally.
So and the other maybe optimistic thing is we play this way. We get better at it against Costa Rica. We get better at it against Paraguay. And by the time, optimistically, we get to the knockout rounds and we face a team maybe of similar quality to Colombia again, we're in much better shape, right? The car's in much better shape. We know which buttons in the car, at least we know which buttons in the car work and don't work. Yeah. Right?
And I want to...
We know whether to roll the windows down or press the AC. We know which option works best.
Exactly. And so we've kind of established that we want to stick with the same system. But my question for you, Mr. Grove, is do we stick with the same starting 11?
Mostly. I lean towards... This is harsh, but like punitive action against DeAndre Yedlin for that defensive performance.
Yeah, you asked me if I would bench him in the next game. And I think I went, no. Well, maybe. Yeah, no, yeah, I would. I would.
And the option would be maybe Fabian Johnson plays right back and Edgar Castillo or Matt Beasler plays left back. Because I thought one of the other possible problems with the lineup is that Fabian Johnson didn't look fully comfortable at left back.
No, he did not.
Right?
Yeah.
But not enough to maybe... But again, this all may be like symptoms of the same problem, which is that we're playing against Colombia and their style of play overmatches our system. So maybe in that way it's too hard to like pick on someone and remove them from the team.
Yeah.
Except for maybe our attacking options. Because Darlington Nagbe, I feel like, could do great things against Costa Rica. Like, I understood not starting him against Colombia because of the more defensive thing that we needed to do. Against Costa Rica, I feel like maybe it's the time to start him. And then Christian Pulisic, we've hit a point where every time he comes off the bench, something good happens. So it may be time to just roll it out from the start and go for it.
So if you're going to go with those two, then would you replace the two players that they replaced in this game? So would you have Pulisic instead of Bobby Wood and Nagbe instead of Jermaine Jones?
Yes. Based on performance in this tournament, which I feel like isn't a bad way to judge things, maybe yes. I feel harsh because I was hot on Bobby Wood early on, but I definitely feel like Pulisic from the start still gives you more than Bobby Wood at this point. And honestly, if nothing else, I'm thinking of US fans and their general feelings, and I feel like there's going to be some negativity on this team after this performance. If the next lineup comes out and Christian Pulisic is starting, it lifts the nation. Yeah. And that maybe isn't the coach's job, but it also kind of sort of is.
Yeah.
At least 5% of it is.
Picking it up a little bit. So I don't know if I agree with you as strongly on Pulisic as I do on Darlington Nagbe. And that's been an evolving thing in the time since the game ended. That we watched it again, I keep looking at some of the either tackles from Jermaine Jones, the marking from Jermaine Jones, the heavy touches, the errant passes. And I just think it wasn't his night. And it could be
terrible passes. Yeah.
And it could just be that he's tired, that it was hot. It was a bad night for him, off game, whatever. But
did you notice him? Actually, I know you did notice him possibly swearing at Klinsmann when he came off.
Yeah, so I can't tell if it was an F-U to Klinsmann or just that Klinsmann said, like, hey, good game tonight, it's okay. And he was sort of like, no, it's not okay, I'm mad.
Yeah.
But there was definitely an F-bomb in there.
And there was a dismissive hand gesture,
yes,
right?
There
as
was.
Klinsmann sort of patted him on the back.
Right. And not even for that, but I just think you need to be sharper. And the times that the United States looked good is when it was quick ball movement, and it was that the thing we talked about, the quick sort of on the floor, 20, 30-yard ball into basically Colombia's defensive third, and now you have possession in a much more advantageous position than working it around the back and trying to have your center backs play that ball. I think Darlington Nagbe is a person who can hold the ball up for as long as is needed, have a few little bits of skill, but move the ball quickly and interact with Michael Bradley in a good little 1-2 up the field sort of way.
Okay, Sophie's choice. If you could only choose to start the next game, Nagbe or Pulisic, you go Nagbe?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I think so. Okay. Having earlier said that Christian Pulisic might have the highest IQ of any U.S. player right now, I think Christian Pulisic offers you so much as an impact sub and can come on and kind of, because he is so smart and because his runs are so good and his positional awareness is so adept, he can really plague a tired team. And whereas Darlington Nagbe, I think, can help you sort of
change the tempo for an entire game.
Yeah, he can stamp your game plan down from the beginning.
Right.
There we go.
Okay.
What about you?
I think you've persuaded me that it's Nagbe. I think being so impressed as we were with the way Colombia moved the ball, he strikes me as the most Colombian-style player that the US has in midfield.
Yep.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, there was that one ball from Juan Cuadrado that he plays on a run, but it's just perfectly square ball. It's 30 yards. It's on the ground, hit with pace, but it's in between two American players. And I think Darlington Nagbe is one of the few U.S. players who could make that pass as well.
Right. Yeah.
So let's do it.
So tomorrow, it's Costa Rica, Paraguay. We've got a little preview of that game and all the other Copa America action later in today's show. And then later in the week, we'll have a big preview of the USA versus Costa Rica, what to look out for from Costa Rica, what we think the US can do to combat it.
Right, but you've got that Costa Rica-Paraguay game. If those teams draw, then US is very much bottom of that table. US might already be sweating after this loss, will definitely be sweating if they find themselves further behind in points, which means they could use some high-quality antimicrobial clothing to keep them cool, calm, and odorless. It also makes them harder to track. Costa Rica and Paraguay won't be able to know exactly where everyone is, at least not by odor.
It sounds like they should check out today's sponsor. Today's sponsor is Mack Weldon. They offer underwear, socks, shirts, undershirts, and hoodies that are not just soft to the touch, but also feature innovative technology.
Right. They also feature the Silver Line, which is essentially a line of underwear, socks, and shirts that is antimicrobial. That means it eliminates odor. That's what I'm talking about. Then you can't be tracked by Paraguayans and Costa Ricans.
And it also means if US fans are sweating between now and Tuesday, and maybe again between Tuesday and Saturday, then Mack Weldon clothes will be a good place to sweat in because of the antimicrobial features.
Also, if US fans are sweating, that means they're stressed out. But the Mack Weldon shopping experience is very easy. They gave us each some money to buy some items. It was a very simple process.
It was.
You've got kind of the tracker bar to let you know where you are, and you're good to go. It's nice and simple.
One of the things I got was a T-shirt. I got an extra large T-shirt, and it was perfectly fitted. So the thing with the Mack Weldon shirts, and they state this very clearly on the website where you do the shopping, is that they are fitted, as in they're kind of tight. So that means you go, if you go slightly above your size, like normally I'm a large in a poorly made T-shirt, if that makes sense, because it'll hang off me a bit.
Yep.
A large in a Mack Weldon would be tight on me. An extra large in a Mack Weldon is roomy but fitted, if that makes sense. It's
does.
Fitted in all the right places.
I can explain, because sometimes when you do, having worked at The Gap when I was 15.
You did not.
Oh, of course I did. Did I hate every minute and become a janitor? I sure did. I was The Gap's janitor, basically, because I knew nothing about clothing and was a terrible salesperson.
And look at you now.
But a lot of times with larger shirts, hurtful, I'm very stylish in my Total Soccer Show long sleeve shirt. Thank you very much. If you buy a larger shirt, it hangs off you, basically. It's not form-fitting. Or if it is form-fitting, it's because of maybe your body as opposed to the shirt. So with Mack Weldon, it tends to be that tighter as opposed to hanging off, and you don't have this weird sort of like... what's the shape I'm making here, basically?
Cone shape?
Yes, a cone. It doesn't end up looking like a cone.
Yeah.
It looks nice and tight.
It's fitted in all the right places. It's the right shape. It's what we want the US national team to be against Costa Rica.
There we go.
And against Paraguay.
So go to MackWeldon.com and get 20% off using the promo code TSS, and maybe do so soon.
Yes, this is our second Mack Weldon ad read. But we want Mack Weldon to be a long-term partner of the show because we like their products.
Indeed.
So if you're considering purchasing one of their products because of our ad reads, we would encourage you to do so sooner rather than later.
And to help incentivize, we here at the Total Soccer Show are spicing things up. When you use the code TSS at MackWeldon.com, they will give you 20% off, and we will automatically enter you into a drawing for a U.S. national team jersey.
So if you go to Mack Weldon, that's MackWeldon.com.
And we will put the link in the show notes.
You buy any item, use the promo code TSS, not just for 20% off, but also we will enter you into the draw for a free US national team jersey. And it can be men's or women's. If maybe you're down on the men's team and you're looking forward to the Olympics a little more, and then you name your size, you can win a jersey of your choosing.
And get some antimicrobial socks, underwear, or undershirts, or any other clothing you might need.
Yes, indeed.
So, we move on to match day 2.
It's when the Copa America really gets started, right? It's not just... So we've been building to this US game, and because it's the opening game and it's the host, you always get that game to yourself, right?
You do.
Like France-Romania will get that day to themselves.
I'm sure the US national team is thrilled that it got the game to itself.
Yeah, right. Tomorrow, it kicks into high gear with 3 games. We are going to give you 3 very short previews of those games and a prediction about each team that will help you be more knowledgeable when you watch those games. All right, Taylor, I genuinely do not know the chronology of Saturday. I hope that you do. You told me you did before we started recording.
I sure do.
What's up first?
So up first at 5 p.m. on Fox, Big Fox, we've got Costa Rica v. Paraguay. That game is being played at Camping World Stadium. Daryl Grove, I will give you a crisp $5 bill if you can tell me in what city is Camping World Stadium located.
American dollars?
Yes.
Camping World Stadium is located in Philadelphia?
Wow. Orlando.
Oh!
Orlando, known for its camping. So we've got Costa Rica, Paraguay.
Philadelphia, not so much.
Not so much. Costa Rica v. Paraguay. We've each taken a team. We've each got a specific prediction about what we think is going to happen in this game. If you haven't listened to the show, if you didn't listen to the show basically during the 2014 World Cup, essentially this is how we tend to review the day's action. We each make a prediction about what we think is going to happen based on the way the team plays. Then we see if that happens, and we review our predictions after the games.
But this game is also important because these are the US's next 2 opponents. This is your first look at these guys, right? All right, so Taylor, you're up first. What's the deal with Paraguay?
What's the deal with Paraguay?
Yeah.
Well, Paraguay can score goals, but they tend to look defensively first.
I remember us doing that preview talking about defending deep.
Right, and I think they're going to do that, especially in this first group stage game. Honestly, especially with the USA losing. I think if you can get a point against Costa Rica, you maybe see Colombia as a wash, and then you go for that win against the USA, 4 points, maybe that'll get you second place, and you advance. So I could see Paraguay sitting back a little bit, not wanting to make any mistakes early, and I think a big part of that is going to be 38-year-old goalkeeper Justo Villar.
Yeah.
I say he's going to pull off a full stretch save, because I do think Paraguay is going to be sitting back. I think Costa Rica, as a result, will have more opportunities. They might be from distance, so it might be like a full stretch save to tip it over the bar, or it might just be from up close and it's a reaction save. But either way, a full stretch save for Justo Villar.
So I started thinking about this game as Paraguay defend deep, Costa Rica like to counterattack, and you could end up with a game where easy shots on goal are limited, right? And it may come down to a goalkeeper mistake.
Yep.
And then I started thinking about Costa Rica, and I thought Keylor Navas, and then I remembered Keylor Navas pulled out. Keylor Navas had that Achilles injury, or Achilles problem, as it was labelled.
Yeah.
Right? It wasn't a full-on injury. And so stayed with Real Madrid, did not come to the Copa America for Costa Rica. That is a huge blow for Costa Rica.
It's a huge blow for me, since he was one of my specific predictions for the overall tournament.
Right.
I take it personally. So you and I have now, between our predictions, forced four different players to withdraw.
We've injured some people.
Goodness gracious. All right. So
no Keylor Navas, right? Costa Rica are going to play their sort of 5-3-2-ish counter-attacking system, but without Keylor Navas at the back. The replacement is going to be a gentleman by the name of Patrick Pemberton. I spent yesterday morning familiarising myself with the work of Patrick Pemberton.
Is he actually a published author? Because it seems like he should be a contemporary of James Joyce.
Or maybe he's a Harry Potter character.
Yes, I like that one too.
So I started looking into, is Patrick Pemberton any good? Because I had this idea that maybe he's going to step into Navas's gloves.
Please tell me that's what you Googled.
Is Patrick Pemberton any good? No, I didn't. I did Google Patrick Pemberton highlight reel. And the first thing I saw was the goal that Costa Rica conceded against Venezuela. They won 2-1, but they conceded a goal against
First thing that I think of with a highlight reel.
Venezuela recently. Solomon Rondon, I believe, scored. It was a 2-on-1 versus Pemberton, and someone squared the ball to Rondon, and Pemberton sort of just sidestepped very slowly. He looked like a FIFA keeper that had gone wrong. So I was immediately worried.
He's a glitchy keeper.
Yeah, I was immediately worried for Costa Rica. So then I looked at some more highlights. The next highlight video I clicked on, I thought, okay, if it's a video of only highlights, I'm going to see some good stuff, right? And it was called El Eterna Statua.
Oh, no.
Right? The Eternal Statue.
Oh, no.
Why do you say oh, no? Because I thought this would be good. I imagine this means he is this giant rock, immovable rock in goal.
Well, it means that. It just means he doesn't move.
That's what the video was.
Yeah.
I am not joking. It is 4 minutes of goals conceded by Patrick Pemberton for Costa Rica and his club team, Alajuelense, in Costa Rica, where the ball goes past him and he does not move. That's an actual
what does he do?
Video. He just watches it go past and then stands there.
He just points at next time.
Next time. I'm still. I feel like someone's playing a prank on me. I really do feel like someone's playing a prank on me. Like, this cannot be a real thing.
And maybe Costa Rica feel like they're having a prank parade on them.
So my prediction for Costa Rica Paraguay is Paraguay will score and Patrick Pemberton will be caught standing still like a statue.
Oof.
Yeah.
That's a great prediction, Mr. Grove.
Well, we'll
Nicely
see.
Done.
He still may have the game of his life.
He may. And if he doesn't, maybe somebody else will in the other two games. Because
what's up next?
Next, at 7:30 p.m. on Fox Sports 2 at CenturyLink Field in Seattle, we've got Haiti versus Peru.
Group B? Is that where we're going?
Yeah. First game of Group B. Do you want to go first or second?
I'll go first.
All right. So you're the away team, so you get to go first.
Okay, so I did the prediction for Peru. Peru have players to be excited about, or at least a couple of them. They got rid of a lot of the big names, but they kept two exciting players at least. Christian Cueva, the right-footed left winger with all the tricks, and Paulo Guerrero, the centre-forward who loves headed goals and will attack any ball that comes within 20 yards of him in the air. I believe we are going to see a goal for Peru that comes from Christian Cueva on the left using his right foot to cross, because he always used his right foot.
You're getting real specific.
Do you remember I watched that highlight video and he only used his left foot once and it was a failed cross?
Yeah.
And it was the highlight was only in the video because of a skill with his right foot. So Christian Cueva will cross from the left with his right foot. Paulo Guerrero will head it past Haiti's keeper.
All right.
Who I believe his name is Johnny Placide.
That sounds familiar. Yep. But I have not gone with any sort of Haitian goalkeeper or defender.
That's good because there's a lot of goalkeepers in our first set of predictions.
Yep. I'm going further forward, and I'm going to say, and I might butcher the pronunciation because, my French is non-existent, but I'm going to say Wild Donald Guerriere will score in this game.
His name's Wild Donald Guerriere?
It's a hyphenate. Yes, Wild Donald.
I love him already.
Wilde Donald, yes. So if you don't know much about him, which you probably don't, he's a 27-year-old midfielder or winger for Wisla Krakow, and he's only 5'7", but the dude has ups. He is the man who scored against Colombia in their most recent friendly, which Haiti lost 3-1.
Right.
5'7", but he scores off of a corner, and he gets over the Colombian defenders. And it's one of those, gets up, hangs in the air, and then power heads it with that, big neck. And it's in the back of the net.
Big neck.
But the other aspect of this is not just that he scored, it's that he was the one that Haiti seemed to be targeting every single time. So it was either set pieces, they're looking for him, corner kicks, they're looking for him. So free kicks or corner kicks, and then also long balls over the top, they're trying to find him. So it seems like he is the guy that Haiti are going to be going to, and if they score, it's going to be Wild Donald on the score sheet.
Lovely. All right. I'll be keeping an eye out for Wild Donald in Haiti, Peru. That game was when again?
7:30 p.m. on Fox Sports 2.
And then the final game of the day is the big one.
Yep. 10 p.m. at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena on Fox Sports 1. It's Brazil v. Ecuador.
Yes. Mm-hmm. This is apart from USA Colombia, this is the first big clash of really exciting attacking teams. I know I am not allowed to make a Brazil prediction because I kept injuring them. I predicted Ricardo Oliveira would have all kinds of goals. He was immediately injured and replaced by Jonas. I predicted Rafinha would have some incredible cameo with incredible moments of skill. Injured, gone.
Yep. I predicted Douglas Costa would embarrass somebody on the international stage. Injured, gone.
Yeah.
Luis Gustavo, also injured, gone.
Wow.
I'm not sure if there are any Brazilian players left aside from Willian, and I'm making a prediction about Willian. I say that
Brazil's go-to guy, right? He's been huge in all their games for the last few months.
Even more so now with the injuries that we just mentioned.
Yeah.
And I'm predicting that he will draw a yellow card, and if you want me to be even more specific, I will say that he will draw a yellow card for Walter Ayovi. Because, as you mentioned, Willian is kind of the go-to guy for Brazil of late. He's fast, he's tricky, he's clever, most importantly, he's good. Ayovi is a veteran. He's coming off a long season, and he's 36. So I could see him trying to track Willian and basically just having to pull him back, pull him down, go in for a tackle and mistime it because of Willian's pace and trickery.
Yeah.
For those reasons, I see a yellow card being drawn, or Willian forcing a yellow card for any Ecuadorian player, but specifically Walter Ayovi.
My one question about Brazil, who's going to play centre forward? Right, it was going to be Oliveira. Jonas is called in. I know Gabriel is there, Gabigol, right? The youngster is 19, I think. We're hoping maybe he makes an appearance.
My initial prediction was
Firmino still has his face pressed up against the glass, maybe me.
He's borrowed Mario Balotelli's "Why Always Me" or "Why Not Always Me."
Why never me?
He's had a not above you always. My original prediction was going to be that Jonas will hold up the ball for a Willian shot, but I wasn't entirely sure that Jonas was going to start. That would be my guess.
So it's an open question still.
Yes, and I think it will be partially because of his size, partially because of his scoring ability, but I think a big component of it will be that he's big, that he can hold the ball up and then let those kind of fast-paced attackers of Brazil run off of him. So I could see Jonas coming in for those reasons.
All right, so the Ecuador preview. We talked about this game. The reason I was so excited is it's Ecuador's incredible wingers. It really is the most exciting thing about the game, against Brazil's incredible fullbacks. So it's Jefferson Montero on the left for Ecuador, Antonio Valencia on the right, up against Dani Alves is the right back up against Jefferson Montero, and Felipe Luis is the left back up against Antonio Valencia. I love that matchup. I'm going to stick to the left-hand side for Ecuador because I'd predicted that no one would ever get past Felipe Luis, the Brazilian left back. So that's locked down. Antonio Valencia, but by all means show up, see what you can do, but best of luck.
Can I make a prediction that he uses his right foot in this game?
No, you cannot.
Okay, fine.
Unless he's injured, he's going to be
steal those points where I can.
So I have a prediction. Jefferson Montero will deliver a very scoreable chance. So Walter Ayovi, the left back, who I'm still a big fan of. He didn't play against the US, by the way. He was, I think he was in some sort of championship game.
He was in Liga MX's championship, yeah.
There you go. So, yeah, that's why he wasn't playing against the US. Mm-hmm. He has a wand of a left foot, right? Mm-hmm. Dani Alves is going to come forward at some point for Brazil. Mm-hmm. That wand of a left foot is going to lift that ball over Willian, over Dani Alves, and it's going to land with a space for Jefferson Montero to run into. This is the guy that tortured DeAndre Yedlin, right? Before Colombia were doing it, Jefferson Montero was doing it for Ecuador. And from there, Montero is going to put a ball in that's going to deliver a scoring chance, probably for someone like Enner Valencia. I'm not saying he's going to score, but it's going to be either a goal or it's going to be an absolute can't-miss chance that someone somehow misses.
So is this one specific prediction?
This
or like
is one specific
six
prediction.
Different ones? Okay.
No, it's a very, very, very specific prediction because it's going to be a Walter Ayovi ball over the back of Brazil, over the advancing Dani Alves, for Jefferson Montero to run onto with his pace and his trickery, and Jefferson Montero is going to deliver a scoreable chance in behind.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. If Walter Ayovi's on the field, if he hasn't gotten 2 yellow cards.
Already?
Well, that's my prediction about Willian, so we'll see what happens.
So there you go. Those are all of Saturday's games previewed. We'll be back Saturday night with quick reviews of those games and a little food for thought for USA versus Costa Rica. And then we'll be previewing Sunday's games because we are in Copa America Centenario mode.
Yes, sir.
And this is just the warm-up because soon the Euros will be joining us.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. We got, 6 games this coming Saturday?
Yeah.
Should be good.
Saturday, June the 11th. Yeah,
we've got 3 Euro, 2 Copa, 1 Richmond Kickers.
Yeah.
Should be fun.
I'm still excited. I'm still at the stage where I'm excited about all these things.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I'm still excited. It's just more of like, have I ever watched 6 games in one day? And the answer is no. But the answer will soon be yes.
Check it off the bucket list. Or add it to the bucket list and then check it out.
Yeah, that's more
likely. It probably
likely.
wasn't in there to begin
It was
with,
not,
right?
no.
But I've enjoyed our first day. Even though the USA lost, there was at least some good soccer to enjoy. It just unfortunately was played by the visiting team.
Indeed. Indeed.
So Taylor Rockwell, thank you for taking the time to join me once again today.
Dale Grove, thank you for taking the time to join me once again for the 3rd show in, less than 12 hours?
Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Listeners, thank you for downloading. Thank you for listening. If you want to help us grow the show, we always appreciate an iTunes review. That's never a bad thing. It helps more people find the show, especially during this busy summer of soccer where we'll be putting out all kinds of content. Final reminder, MackWeldon.com. If you make a purchase, we will enter you into a draw for a US national team jersey of your choice. Until next time, I've been Daryl, he's been Taylor. Thank you for listening, and we will talk to you soon.